Hello!
Welcome to the first
episode of Sound It Out.
We are your hosts. I'm Cailin Kiefhaber, and this is
Shanida Gutierrez.
We are both educators. We met in New York, and you have to tune into the prologue.
Yes, to hear about our love story, really. We're not a couple. We just love each other very much.
But I think the most important thing is that we are very good friends that live very different lives. I'm in Washington, D.C. with 2 children under the age of 4 and a husband and a dog.
And I'm in New York City with my mother. And I teach at a private school in the city.
And one thing that we do strongly have in common is our love of education and also our love of learning. And we have found that we have entered an era of our lives where if we don't hold ourselves accountable in some big way, like starting a podcast, we may lose steam and not continue the research and awareness of the education world around us.
I also feel like we want to have these conversations. These are conversations that we want to have, but we're also not going to go and get like a second or third master's degree just to have them. We want to keep learning because as an educator and a reflective one, you need to always keep learning and being open to being flexible to change.
Yeah. Our prologue will have our whys of why we did this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you hit the nail on the head that you don't really need to go out and get a master's or any form of degree these days. I mean, you should. Hot
of course.
take.
Yeah. Already?
But she's being cute. But I think there are a lot of really creative and effective ways to learn and to grow.
Yeah.
And I mean, you literally looked up a curricula of, what did you look up?
When we first started talking about this, I was like, all right, how would we figure out what we talk about or what are the topics? So I went online and I looked up, I think it was like University of Louisiana or something, and it was like their curricula. So it was like their syllabus for the master's program, and it had things, I don't even remember what it had, but it had, language acquisition and like implementing reading strategies in, early elementary classrooms, courses like that. So this is that.
Yeah. And we swore that we wouldn't get into the whole thing, and we're making it a quick separate episode where you can learn more about who we are. We wanted to say at the top of the episode, the point of this is also to chat and banter.
Yes.
And have fun. And although the meat and potatoes of our episodes will be based in the world of education, we do want to catch up on our lives.
Because we are people, and we love things.
And we want to share some
we
important
want to
things
share.
that
Yeah, we want you to know what we know, and we're not going to gatekeep.
Oh!
I don't like gatekeeping.
We have to remember that we are millennials, and so we have to be careful with using those words.
Oh, I'm not allowed to say gatekeep.
I just don't, I'm also acting like we have 1,000 listeners that are going to like sound off in the comments.
It's literally going to be like my mom, your husband,
okay, yeah,
your children.
Let's catch up a bit.
Hi.
How
are you?
So Shanida's visiting in DC right now, and my amazing husband Lex is holding the children away so that we can record without them coming in. But, we've been talking so much about this episode, we haven't really caught up. What do you want to share?
Not much. We're getting ready for the end of the first term. I always feel like the beginning of the school year is always like, because it's 16 weeks straight. And you're exhausted and you're just trying to make it through, and finally we're here. And I'm kind of sad because I'm like, the year is halfway over. We're already starting to talk about the next term. I don't know. But I'm just exhausted.
Yeah.
So I may ramble. But
being a classroom teacher at a certain age is really hard.
Yeah. And it's a lot on your patience. I think when you're in the beginning and you're like, oh, this is so great. This is new. It's lovely. You're excited. But when you've been doing it for a while, your patients can wear thin. But it doesn't mean you don't love it. It doesn't mean you don't have the same want or why. It's just, it's a little bit more tiring.
Did you guys have a cool cocktail holiday party?
It's on Tuesday.
Okay, but like,
yeah, I'm
how
really
was last
excited.
year's? I mean, I remember
it was great
because when we worked together, we had. I mean, I feel like whether you're corporate or you're at a school or like wherever you are, I feel like the holiday party has stories afterwards, and they're always on a weekday, and you're always hungover the next day.
And I always feel like they're paired with your winter concert. So I feel like every school has a winter concert where the kids are playing and there's like instruments involved.
To say, like, I think the reason that there's like stories and vibes at these holiday parties is because like all of a sudden the teachers are in a dark lit room, like a not lit room, and they're wearing lipstick or heels or like,
and there's music and there's food and you're like vibing with everyone and it's a whole, and they always do like a raffle. It's very sweet. It's very fun. Yeah, it's nice. It'll be good. What about you?
Well, speaking of holiday concerts, I attended one as a parent for the first time.
Oh.
My son is 4 and in pre-K 3, and he had his first winter concert.
Amazing.
And I asked another parent of older children before the concert. I said, like, what am I in for? And she's like, just don't stop smiling. And there were moments when they just like didn't quite get the audio right in the auditorium, and there was a recording going of students reading a story, and it was at like max capacity volume, and we were all like, like literally, just keep smiling, just keep smiling. But yeah, I'm in a part of my life where I'm having so many memories of my childhood because my son is going through them.
Yeah.
My daughter's only turning 2, and so I can't relate. I don't remember any of that. But watching him write his letter to Santa and talk about Santa. Also, apparently, parents these days, I'm curious your opinion, don't believe in, you're not supposed to say, Santa's watching.
We'll see, like,
don't do that. Santa's watching. You can't even flip it in the positive and be like, be kind because Santa's watching. Like, there's no appropriate way. You're just like not supposed to say it, and we've chosen to say it all the time.
Really?
Yeah, we're saying it.
I mean, I feel like it's either Santa's watching or Elf on the Shelf. Doesn't he have something
God.
to do? You don't have.
I didn't have that growing up.
Me neither.
I mean. Lex and I will have to have a conversation about it if Rye asks why the elf doesn't come to our house.
Yeah, is it something that you feel like,
I
don't know.
I don't know how we're going to tackle that. I'll have to
because also his job, isn't his job to be mischievous and to like wreak havoc?
Yeah, and I think, well, you can manipulate it as you wish as a parent. Like, I think the kids that did have it...
I think that's the key word there, though. Manipulate
it. Because I think some parents are like, I need something even more intense than Santa.
Yeah.
I need the elf in the house watching at all times.
And Santa. Yeah, because I'm Catholic, so it was always like Jesus and God are watching, so beware. Always.
I grew up Christian, but we also left the church as soon as I was confirmed. So, but that's for another podcast.
Yes, definitely.
Things we're loving right now.
I have 3 faves so far. My first one is Wicked. If you haven't seen it already.
Hot take.
I've seen it twice now. Go see it. My second is, I don't know if this is actually appropriate, and I'm questioning whether or not I should mention it, the book that I'm reading. Because
everybody talks about it.
It's, I'm in love with the series A Court of Thorn and Roses. And I haven't read, I think what's really important is, like, I haven't read a series or a book or been invested in something like that for such a long time. And just that, like, that I'm feeling this, I don't know, this like giddy adolescent joy from like reading these books. Mm-hmm. It's just like, I don't know. And if you're into that kind of, it's called romantasy. I've been calling it smut. It's not actually smut. It's just romantasy. It's just this other world.
Oh, it's not smutty?
It is. I mean, there's stuff.
If you were pausing on it being appropriate, then I imagine there's something fun in there.
There's stuff. Yeah. And it's great stuff.
Okay.
I just think it's fun. And then my last one is just the stuff that I've been using in my hair.
Okay, yeah.
Kerastase.
I was supposed to put it in my hair before we started recording, but our lighting is so good. I don't know that I even.
No, but it's so good. It's just the best stuff. That's it. Those are my 3.
Okay.
Cheers to that.
Mine is time blocking.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
which I honestly just thought it meant like writing a schedule, and it's not.
I think for future episodes, I want to come up with something a little bit more fun, but it's just my truth. My word of the past 6 months has been overstimulated.
And I feel like you like a buzzword and a time blocking.
Yeah, you know, I have seen like a funny Instagram meme or GIF or whatever they're called, the video ones, where this influencer, there's a clip of an influencer like talking about like time blocking and then it cuts to somebody being like, "You mean you wrote a to-do list?"
Right, because that's immediately, I was like, oh yeah, I have the to-do list as well, but it's like, but I do feel like the way you explained yours was a lot better.
It's this process that, I mean, if this relates to anybody listening, if anyone's listening, I feel like there's so much going on at any given time in the environment around me, in my home, in my workspace, that if I just freeball it and I just like go into my home after school drop off, I will absolutely get distracted and do a lot of productive stuff. But like, gone are the days of getting distracted and like watching a show or painting my nails or like doing something fun. But I'll get distracted with like organizing the refrigerator or meal prep or lots of other really mundane, boring things. Oh wait, no, I do have a second.
Yay!
But I have been just brainstorming. There's a word for it. Brain dumping.
Yes, I love a brain dump.
I do a brain dump, preferably on paper, but like the other day, I had to brain dump in my car. So I did it on my notes app, and I wrote down everything I had to do that day, and then I categorized them by focus. So there was like emails and admin stuff, and then there was tutoring stuff because that's what I do, and then there was podcasting stuff, etc., etc. And then to take it a step further, I put time limits on it. So
which I think is super helpful.
9:15 to 9:45, that was my time for emails, and it was, I think, the really good thing about going through it and doing it. And again, I know I'm not reinventing the wheel. I know like everybody does this, and it's like executive functioning like 101. But when I looked back on my list as I checked everything off, it was really nice to realize I am doing a lot, and I felt really good about myself, and also like how much I'm just overshooting and need to like tone it down. So that was good. The second thing I'm loving right now is the company Love Every.
Oh, yeah.
Their reading kits.
Yes.
Okay, so we've had the Love Every subscription for my son Rye forever, and I love it, and the toys are amazing. And if you don't know it, the quick description is that it's based on age, delivered to your home, and each kit, so say it's for like 12 to 16 months old, it'll explain each toy, but it'll also explain when to give it to your child, and what to do with it, and when to cycle it out and when to cycle it back in, and also all of the skills that they're learning. It will give ideas of prompts and questions and the whole nine. And then they just launched their reading kits. So they start with early readers, early preschool age, and they go through all phonemic awareness skills, rhyming, syllabication, what have you, and then they go into letter sounds, blending, and I haven't opened the upper level kits yet, so stay tuned. But the first stage with the rhyming, phonemic awareness, uppercase, lowercase matching, and they're all in like these beautiful games, cards, real photographs.
Oh, nice.
It's just really, really well done, and I highly recommend it.
Yeah. And we'll have a place for you to go and find these things.
I think traditionally we put them in the show notes. Right?
Yes.
We link in
we'll
show
link
notes.
everything there. I think we're going to take a little break and come back with our main idea.
Okay, welcome back to Sound It Out, in our very first episode, which we are naming Lucy Calkins and the Kitchen Table Teachers. We're talking about Lucy Calkins.
We both have I think it's a very interesting take on her. I think our experiences are kind of unique, and who she was to us. I think, we really want to...
Unique and similar.
Yeah.
So we'd been floating around the idea of doing a podcast for a really, really long time, and actually when things really exploded in the world of Lucy Calkins and the science of reading, I was a little bit bummed that we couldn't jump in the fire and be a part of it. But interestingly enough, it's back in the news with some current lawsuits in Massachusetts from parents. And so we were planning on pulling all of this apart anyway, but the relevance has not gone away. And that's a really interesting topic. So we want to talk a bit about who Lucy Calkins is, who she was to us separately, and our experiences with using her curricula. And then also talk about this downfall that she went through, and the rise of science of reading, and a lot of...
kind of like the information that's out there, and just really... because there's so much.
Yeah.
Okay,
so how can we describe Lucy Calkins in a nutshell?
I feel like the easiest way is to it's a reading and writing curricula geared towards elementary school.
8th grade.
I want to say through 8th grade as well. Yeah.
Is available, or was available at some time. When I was using it, I remember there was the K to 2 and then the 3 to 5.
Yeah.
And we never taught older than that, so I can't speak for higher. She works for Teachers College, or worked for Teachers College.
Yeah, she went to NYU. She got her doctorate there. I found this really interesting too, like learning about her background, that she worked with the father or the person who developed Writer's Workshop, and she first went into building curricula for that. So like before she wrote books about writing, and then I think she started writing books about teaching reading. And then through Teachers College, that's when she actually developed this curricula. And I feel like at first it was just kind of like their kind of like little, I don't know, teachers reading and writing, what was it called? The Reading and Writing Center at Teachers College?
I think so.
And then I think it was in 2003, Joel Klein was the person and he was the chancellor for ed in New York at the time, I think. You can let us know if I'm incorrect at any point. But then he was the one who was like, oh, this is amazing, we all need to use this, and he pushed it into schools. I feel like that's kind of where the boom started.
Yeah, and there's a lot to talk about, like who she was influenced by.
Right.
But you can do that research for yourself, because I don't want to misquote anything.
No.
But yeah, we came upon her as teachers in the classroom. And so back to your question, I was probably in my 3rd, 4th year of teaching, like very early on. And I taught for up to 15 years total. And I was in an international school that was PYP. And the reason I wanted to work at this school is because the headmaster wanted to, and a lot of this will be in our prologue episode, but he wanted to create a school where all of his teachers were pulling from the best of the best in terms of curricula and putting it together to create something wonderful. And we'll get into this a lot in this discussion, but I mean, I've been craving that to work in the world of education ever since, and I wonder if it's possible. I absolutely think it's the way to go, but I still have yet to see it done successfully. Mm-hmm. But when it came to teaching, it was first for writing. Okay. We used her curricula for writing workshop, mm-hmm. and it was a lovely way to teach writing as if I was working with my peers. Mm-hmm. I really loved that.
I do feel like that I've had the same experience. I didn't actually use it until we started working together.
Mm-hmm. I think I pushed for it to be at our school. That we
really?
Were at. I think so. I think I'm the reason it was brought in.
We'll get into this a lot later, but I feel like her writing curricula is like really strong, and I really love that. But yeah,
well, she wanted to inspire versus teach, and so my core philosophy of teaching and of education has always been, and this is a quote that came from that same headmaster, mm-hmm. was guide by the side, not sage on the stage.
Oh, I love that.
And it was all about student-led learning, mm-hmm. and, you literally, even the environment, you could tell the vibe and the belief in teaching, because you would walk into my classroom and many other teachers' classrooms at that school, and you couldn't even identify a teacher desk. Mm-hmm. It was just a shared community of learners, mm-hmm. teacher included. We even addressed each other all by first name. And so Lucy really fit that, because the language in her lessons was very obvious that she wanted to invite children to love writing. And she called them writers. Even the kindergartners, she would say, the kindergartners that couldn't, some of them, write a letter on a paper, she would say, writers come, and they would tell stories through drawings. Right. If they didn't have the fine motor skills to even draw a picture or didn't feel comfortable doing that, they would oral story tell. But that dynamic was what immediately drew me. And then later on, when I started exploring Reader's Workshop, mm-hmm. it was the same vibe. It was inviting children to share a love of reading in a very positive way. A romantic.
Yeah,
no shit.
It was very romanticized. I also feel like there was structure in the writing, in the writer's workshop. I felt like I liked her structure, the way she got students to that provocation of figuring out, because it's very hard and it's a daunting task. How do I write all of this stuff, or put my thoughts on paper? How do I do that? And I feel like she had a lot of that was the thing that I loved the most was how she scaffolded all of that thinking, all of that whole process. But yeah, then when it was the reading, that as well, it was kind of she kind of presented it you're romantic, romanticizing it kind of sticks in my head, but it was also kind of we're going on this adventure mm-hmm. together, and we're exploring books, and we're having this love affair with reading. It was very
I think though, which could lead us into the downfall.
Yeah, and that's
I with both Reader's Workshop and Writer's Workshop, in both situations, as much as I absolutely loved it, and like I said, I'm almost positive I recommended it to be used in our school that we went to.
I want to say it might have been already there, or no?
It could have been there as a resource, but they didn't have a reading coordinator at the time, and so nobody was really there. Nothing was being implemented in a way that teachers were gathering together and vertically and horizontally mm-hmm. using the same language and curriculum. And they were, this is something we can get into too, they were craving that. It was cool that they weren't pushed to do that, mm-hmm. but it was becoming uncool because parents were starting to notice that there were wildly different experiences, not just in different grade levels, but across grade levels in different classrooms. And that's when, as a school, I think the pressure is put on you. And granted, this was a private school, so there was more leeway. But the pressure is put on you as a coordinator or an administrator to align the goals.
Yeah.
And it's, imperative for assessment. You can't not have alignment and a scope and sequence or some form of it across grade levels and classrooms.
No, yeah, I agree.
So
I think a big part was, because when we worked together, it was in kindergarten. I think we did start seeing a discrepancy because then, just like in, I don't know, I just feel like we were seeing that there was a need for standalone phonics instruction.
Yes,
and I remember, missing. And it was like, oh, well, what are we gonna? And I remember we made. Do you remember we did Daily 5, but we also made like our, a Apple ad, all of our cards.
We did make our own phonics.
Do you remember
cards.
We made our own, with like real pictures because that was like, we wanted. But it was just, we saw it. Like, we recognized,
we felt it.
Right? We're in the classroom, we're seeing, students are starting to struggle. Like, they needed a more concrete way to understand and build their reading skills, and that's what we did.
And we were building the plane while we were flying it, for sure.
Yeah. And I think I do need to mention, just for understanding, too, this place where we were working was kind of a startup, in a sense. It was a new school. So they, too, were kind of charting this unknown and, like, new territory, and we were helping to scaffold that at that time. But I think it's important to say, because, like, many schools already have, that are established and have been around for quite a while, even though they've used Lucy, I do feel like a lot of, I don't know, maybe I'm speaking too much or saying too much, but I do feel like most schools had, and I'm just speaking like private school, I might be digging a hole for myself, but they had some kind of phonics program as well.
Okay, well, so
we can get there.
I want to come back to that thought. So, but I want to talk a little bit more first about how we were feeling like something was missing, and I think that's a really big point. So, both in reading, like Shanida mentioned, we were making our own sound cards and just looking around the internet and speaking to each other about past experiences to find resources to implement. Over the years, we used Daily 5. Words Their Way was excellent for spelling differentiation. I was pulling from, in the past, having had used Foundations, trying to pull some things from that.
And then I remember, I think it was our second year, we started using Letters and Sounds, which was a free British or UK-based phonics program to scaffold that, but in conjunction with Lucy's reading workshop.
Because we didn't want to give it up.
No, we loved it.
We loved it. And for writing, it was the same situation. So we continued using Lucy Calkins' writing workshop, but we're also feeling like something was missing. We started using 6+1 Treats of Writing. We experimented with a little bit. And then also building rubrics. We would try to build our own rubrics.
And I think it was a little different for you because you moved up with a number of the students, and I stayed in first grade because I had been doing kindergarten. We did kindergarten together, and then I think you moved to first or to third, or I think it was like a higher.
It was 3, 4, 5.
Oh my gosh!
It was 3, 4, 5. It was. This is a new school. It was a classroom of 10 kids.
Yeah.
And it was a mix of 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade.
That is amazing. And then I stayed in first.
But I think you had it harder because you were trying to navigate those early years of readers and writers.
And it was it was just trying to plug the holes and like figure out what worked. And we used Letters and Sounds I actually grew to love, and I thought it was I'm going to say this, but I think there is a time and place for things to be prescriptive, and it was, and it helped, and it worked, and we saw it work, and we used zoophonics.
I had never used that.
Remember that was the and I'm gonna jumble this, but it was the T Tony Tiger.
Yeah, I did it. Yeah.
And Francie Fish. But it was all of these kinesthetic movements. Oh my god, I can't believe I forgot
What kind
this.
of studying time did you have to devote to that?
Well, I didn't actually. It was the other, because it was a whole thing, and I guess we'll get into this now. We combined our classes, the whole first grade.
Oh, right,
the two classes.
Yeah.
And then she would lead it, because it was, this teacher was more experienced in this. And I learned from her. And to me, it was like getting a second
I just see you in the background. Just
yeah, and I loved it. And then what I saw later on in the year, I would go up to the kids and they'd be like, oh, how do I spell da-da-da? Or do you spell this word this way? And I'd be like, that's like a, and not a, it was but it was a cat. Understanding what a k was as opposed to a k. I don't remember what C was, but whatever. But it was just I didn't have to say anything.
Yeah.
I'd make the motion. And the kids would pick up on that and immediately make the connection. And then they'd be able to sound out the word to then spell it. So it was really, really interesting.
So the point is, we definitely felt a need. We felt like something was missing. There was a point when I moved into, I think it was the year I was in 3, 4, 5. I was also a part-time reading coordinator, which is kind of a red flag to a full-time teacher to also be a reading coordinator. But that's debatable. But I remember there was just a weirdness with our administration at the time, a pushback to me wanting to create a scope and sequence for the teachers from pre-K through 6 of what to teach in terms of phonics and when. And she really, because I did start doing it with my grade level meetings quietly and did not share with her that I was doing it because the teachers craved it. I had been craving it as a teacher as well. And it was interesting. Our principal at the time was a very seasoned, very talented educator who I really, really admired and wanted to just take everything she said as 100% Bible. But I couldn't get away from the fact that something was missing that we needed to teach. And I'm curious. I would love to interview her to find out if she thinks that she was against a rigid scope and sequence because that just wasn't sexy for so long. There's the progressive versus the traditional camps of education, which I think this is a big reason that this mantra exists, that phonics is it's dusty, it's rows of desks, it's teacher lectures, it's worksheets, it's and children are very much unhappy in these situations. And
I'm also wondering if, because the school that we worked at was an IB school, and that also, the idea of and if you don't know, the International Baccalaureate is a curriculum where it's inquiry-based, it's based in, student asking questions and learning about things kind of through driving concepts and etc. But I feel I'm wondering if it was her experience also being an international teacher or working internationally, how that played in, and wanting to still give students the power to inquire and to kind of build their learning authentically through inquiry. But I feel there has and I think something we're going to get to at some point when we do, get into the nitty gritty about, Lucy's downfall, God bless, is kind of there's a time and a place for everything. There's a time and a place for a standalone lesson. There's a time and a place for doing something, not for the sake of doing it, but because a student actually needs to learn this, so we have to put the inquiry aside for a minute. We have to put aside the like authentic experiences and all that kind of stuff, and actually just sit down and be like, here's some flashcards. I'm going to do this. Repeat after me, or however it is, like, you need to learn. We need to do this.
So the downfall of the Lucy Calkins curriculum, we have a pandemic. We have children home with virtual learning from school on Zoom. And here's where the title of this podcast, hopefully it will be something about Lucy Calkins and the kitchen table teachers. And the visual there is that children across the country are sitting at their kitchen tables or wherever, posted up with their teacher on their laptop or iPad or any device. And for the very first time, parents are given a very literally clear visual of how their child is being taught and
is learning.
And we heard this quoted through a variety of articles, podcasts, all which will be quoted in our show notes. But we hear parents recalling that, for example, thinking their child for years. So let's say we have a second grader sitting at their kitchen table on Zoom, and their teacher is going through the reading lesson of the day, and it's right from Lucy Calkins' reading workshop. A parent recalls that from kindergarten through first grade, now the child's in second grade, they thought their child had reading difficulties. And maybe they had a tutor, maybe they didn't, but they were very concerned, and it was a difficult thing that they were learning how to deal with and help their child. Suddenly, they hear the reading lessons, and their child is being directed, when having trouble reading a word, to look at the picture for a clue, or come up with an idea of another word. It could be. And they're hearing repeatedly these be the strategies that their child is taught to learn how to become a reader. They're not hearing explicit instruction with phonics.
Right.
And this is happening across grade levels, kindergarten, first, second. And parents are shocked. I think parents are incredibly emotional.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine. Most recently, because this is in the news again, the podcast Sold a Story has resurfaced, and the parent of one of my students that I tutor one-on-one for reading, I recommended she listen to the podcast. She listened to the podcast, and she was emotional because she could relate so very much to the experiences of these parents and realized that her child was going through the same thing in their school.
Yeah.
So Lucy is exposed. I want to tread lightly on the words I use because, I mean, and we'll talk this out, but I'm just so unsure even like where I land on all of this.
Yeah, because I also listened to the podcast on my way here, and I kind of had a different take on it, and I think it's based heavily just in our experience of working with the curricula on our own, and what a lot of other parents who had older children were seeing were their students weren't proficient readers the way that they thought. Fourth graders, fifth graders, or even like data from the United States, it's saying like eighth graders are unable to read at grade level. And a lot of it is pointing to, the use of Lucy Calkins and the lack of a phonics program. I think America, or the United States of America, kind of woke up to that and had, not only did they have a pandemic crisis on their hand, but they started to see our students aren't where they should be at all. And this was kind of like our wake up to it.
A quote from one article that we both read by The Atlantic said that in a 2020 report by a nonprofit called achievethecore.org, They describe the units of study as beautifully crafted. Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Yes.
But 100%. Unlikely to lead to literacy success for all of America's public school children.
And then I personally had a problem with that sentence.
Okay.
Because no curricula is going to do that, right? And like all children we know that, and like us as educators, we know no two children are alike, right? No two children learn the same way, especially considering, different learning styles, different needs. No curricula is going to be a fixed one-stop shop for everybody. And that's where I'm coming from, and my confusion is, why are we laying the blame on this poor woman who, yes, she developed a curricula, but who were the people who were pushing this? Why was it out there, and why wasn't, and I'm not trying, and I know that people have very strong feelings about this. People were like, the curricula isn't great, or it doesn't work, or whatever, but then, and I think my questions were, and I had this written, and anyway, I want to be like, it's on the computer that we're using to record this, but I'm like, why, if they saw it wasn't working, why wasn't there a solution put in place? Why didn't, we sat and said, okay, we need a phonics program. Let's do the research. We don't want to pay for it. There's this whole thing that we can use online for free. We're not going to go and spend a ton of money to just buy a new, curricula, but we can find other places. Why weren't people resourceful and see this? And I'm not trying to lay blame and take away the full blame from Lucy, but I do feel like, as the Atlantic article says, it's like she's the scapegoat.
Well, so as we said in the lead up here, I think we both personally feel very conflicted because there was never one time when we had completed a Lucy lesson and said, okay, perfect, done. Or not even completed. There was never a time when I looked through an upcoming unit of study or a lesson that I was going to teach, and I thought to myself, cool, I can put this in my plan, and that's all I need.
Right.
And so it's hard for us because we experienced that gut feeling of knowing it needed something supplemented,
right.
And I never once felt anger with that.
No.
I thought that as an educator, my job was to pull what needed to be pulled, not only to work for a reading curriculum to have all the components it needed, but even on a more micro level, I needed to look at my class at hand.
Right.
Am I looking at a class of
really
high-level kindergartners? Am I looking at huge rifts between their levels? Do I have a class of 3rd, 4th, and 5th mix? Right. I just always thought that was our job, was to fill in the pieces, and there was always going to be different puzzles to put together.
And best practices. If you look at best practices, differentiation is what we need. Right? You can't go into a class and be like, we're all going to learn X, Y, Z, and you're all going to take it in and learn it, and we're going to be great. No, it's like, okay, I have my highs, I have my middles, I have my lows. We're going to make sure that everybody is getting their needs met. And yes, I know it's harder because at other schools they're larger, they have more demands, they have less time or planning or whatever, but really when you get down to the nitty-gritty of being a teacher, your job isn't to just regurgitate what you're being handed. I mean, yes, it's us teachers have to be held accountable, but I also want to kind of get to that, the hierarchy. And
I think that's a good transition. We both find it difficult to digest that educators were not having any little inkling or feeling that something needed to be supplemented.
Right.
But what I can empathize towards is that after identifying a feeling that something is missing, there's a lot of schools where there's no system in place or administration or reading coach or whatever the title happens to be to provide the appropriate guidance or the supplemental curricula, right? So even if you're having that gut feeling, sometimes you have nowhere to put it and
Right.
and nowhere to go to
Nowhere
ask,
to go.
or you don't know what to ask for, and you think maybe that gut feeling is just you being nervous, you
Right.
know? And so there is empathy to have there, and like you and I, our strengths can be like our worst enemies
Yeah.
because we just see, you know, we see red and we hear what we hear and we see what we see, and we have to pause and think of like, oh.
And I also started to think about like new teachers as well. Like if you're new to the profession, you're assuming that you're getting the
Everything
best
you need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like this is what we should be doing, and I'm gonna trust that the district or the administration of the school or whatever knows what's best for these children, because that's why they're the administrators. That's why they're the ones running, you know, these organizations, these schools, and like guiding our children's education.
And I want to say, when I say supplemental curricula, like to a reading or a writing program, like the things that we said we went out and looked for to make the program complete. I mean, in reading specifically, because I want to try to hone this into just reading.
Yeah.
I mean, some variety of phonics program that is rooted in the science of reading. And there's a few. I happen to be a huge lover of the Orton Gillingham approach, but that also is just an approach. You do need a lot more, like, in order to make that work. But, you know, Foundations is rooted in phonics.
My current school where I work, we use Foundations.
Heggerty is being used at my son's school, and I want to research it more. But again, I know very little. I have not done the research. I haven't worked the program. But from what I hear him, he's talking about syllables, and he's identifying sounds of letters, not names of letters.
Right.
He's sound forward, which I think is great.
Yes.
But that's just what I mean by the supplemental curriculum. Like, we can lead children or guide children to a love of reading, and we can invite them to use the pictures to help them. But we also have to have the phonics lesson happening.
Yes, exactly. And
the differentiated phonics lesson for all the different levels of phonetic people.
And I feel like that's kind of like where I'm coming from as well, is I don't see why they can't go hand in hand, and I don't see why. What I loved about Lucy Calkins, and yes, some people say that, and I think I've said this myself, is that, and God bless her, she's a bit long-winded, and if you're a teacher and you're watching this, I know you're like nodding your head, like she will have like a paragraph of like script for you to say to the kids and bring them over, and you have a song, come to the carpet, we're gonna, and it's like, yeah, great, you know, maybe you're a singer, maybe
Wait,
you want
that was from Lucy?
Yeah.
So I was mystery reader at Rise School on Friday, and he's in preschool 3, and his teacher sang a song to invite them all to the carpet. So like she uses Heggerty, but she used a piece of something. It could be that small.
Because that's what I loved about Lucy. She set the environment. I feel, and that's what, like, if you look at her reading, her writer's workshop, it's the same thing. Like, dim the lights, you have on the fancy music, you have, you know, like, whatever, there's not incense, but, like, you know, you have this, like, whole, like, vibe going, right? It's all these, like, you know, vibes for writing and, like, encouraging kids to read and loving it. And that I love. And I feel like that you can still do, but you have to teach the phonics. Like, you can't be like, okay, we're just going to do this, and then not. And then even those skills, like I pulled up today and we were looking at, you know, if you know her program, part of what she does in her curricula is she provides you with anchor charts. And an anchor chart is basically like a poster that tells you, you know, all about, you know, a feature or a strategy to read. And she has this one anchor chart that's kind of like all the strategies together that you should use to learn how to read. And yes, some of them are, you know, like, first one says, look at the picture. So, okay, maybe that's not something that we want students to actually do to help them decode a word. But then one of her second strategies is look at all parts of the word. But you need to know, and you have to have had learning and front loading of what those parts are in order to do that. You know what I mean? So I feel like what I'm trying to say, and I'll wrap up, is just that, yes, there are holes, like, holes in her curricula, but I feel like those holes are for the phonics. And by using a supplemental program, you can have that in. And they can go hand in hand. Because she does have,
I have a quote from
there you
Calkins
go. Let's go.
that I didn't hear about or get a vibe about until today when I was doing my some last minute reading. Then you must have read it too.
Yeah, I'm excited to know which one it is.
Here's two. Because again, we did say, I said, I'm not sure where I land on this. And so, okay, quote from Lucy Calkins. Every school has a phonics program.
Yeah, okay, I'm done.
Another quote. I've never heard of a kindergarten teacher that doesn't teach phonics.
Should I read the one? Wait, can I read the one before that?
Yeah, but I also want to unpack. Yeah, and then I want to unpack.
It says you would have to be stupid not to teach a 5-year-old phonics.
So, first of all, the very most important thing is, and this is a big issue that we could have a whole other episode on, but this umbrella term of teaching phonics is, I think, dangerous. The umbrella term of science of reading, I think, can be dangerous. I think that our country has a bad habit of wanting to pull things off the shelf and apply them, and also has a bad habit of canceling things without anybody trying to bring it back to the table and revise it, and they have a bad habit of just wanting a quick fix. Yeah. Now, that goes with the topic of Lucy saying, I've never heard of a kindergarten teacher that doesn't teach phonics. So, but what do you mean about teaching phonics? Could teaching a kindergartner the sound of each letter and maybe blending them be a check in the box of phonics? Does it have to go deep into checking that they have phonemic awareness, which is being able to count syllables and rhyme words and hear sounds being deleted and inserted? I mean, this is why the term scope and sequence, to me, has always been very important, because it's a place where we can take a child from beginning to end to be sure that we're teaching phonics in a complete way. It's also a way for us to map out and see where we could put different kids on this scope and sequence, because we don't all have to start at A, pun intended, and end at C. But those quotes are important to highlight.
I feel like those quotes as well kind of make me wonder, then, her curricula for reading. If she's thinking that students are learning phonics, then wouldn't that kind of mean that what she's built is supposed to supplement that and to encourage the love of reading as opposed to just being about teaching reading?
Okay, yeah. So here's my struggle with understanding all of this.
Yeah,
and this is where we actually were supposed to, at the top of the episode, say that we are here to learn and grow. We are open to constructive criticism. We are open to misconceptions that we might be stating being corrected or challenged. I also feel like I've made a lot of statements, but it's also this is what I'm getting from what I'm reading. I'm getting this from a source, and maybe it's not the correct one, but I want to know, these are actually questions and wonderings that I have. What was... Because to me, I'm still baffled at, why this is all happening. I think that's, my big... So, the reason I just remembered that is exactly what you just said. It's because here's the struggle, right? Okay. Yeah. So, Lucy is under fire because, as quoted in the podcast Sold a Story, reporter Emily Hanford argued that teachers had fallen for a single unscientific idea. Right. So when you say, if we know she's assuming that everybody's teaching phonics, then isn't that her way of saying you also have to teach phonics? But she never was quite explicit in that. And her single idea, the quote, is beginning readers don't have to sound out words. No, not her quote, I'm sorry. The idea is not just from her, it's from a group of 4 people. The idea being spread is that beginning readers don't have to sound out words, and that a company and 4 of its top authors had sold this wrong idea to teachers and politicians. And this company is Heinemann, and the 4 people were Marie Clay, the duo Fountas and Pinnell, and Calkins. Okay? And they've been written as pursuing the teaching of literacy as like literacy as a vibe and not having direct instruction. And so I'm struggling with the fact that this idea was being sold literally for so many years, and there was never any like, maybe there could be a preface in the curricula saying, or like disclaimer, don't touch this until you've applied your phonics program.
Right. That's kind of like where
and my question is like, did that exist? Was there a moment when, and we're talking specifically about Lucy, even though that idea had a component of, she was part of a group of 4 with that idea being spread, but like, did Lucy's curricula have any mention explicitly to teachers that they needed to also incorporate something else? I don't know that answer.
I don't know that either. I feel like it's up to our administrators and the people who are running, our schools. Because, like, there's a whole section on the Joel Klein, like I had said at the beginning, that in 2003, he was the one who mandated that her workshop be put into elementary schools. And it says, alongside a separate, much smaller phonics program. But it was just that, everybody's going to be doing Lucy because they were so fascinated by, and loved the curricula so much. But it's like, I don't know. I feel like I keep coming back to the same thing of like, we love a one-stop shop. This is not Walmart. Yeah. Your child's education can't be approached like Target. Yeah. Like, I'm going to buy my grocery and these amazing, which no shame to Target. No. But like these amazing. I was there twice last week. I still have shoes that I like amazing. Yeah, it could be like one of our recs. Anyways, but not with your education. You can't, like, it needs to be, and I think I'm coming from this place of like disbelief that this is what we're doing in the United States with education. It's like, oh, this works, give it to everybody.
Who's Ackerman from the University of Calgary? I meant to look up that person and find more about them. So Aukerman from the University of Calgary had another incredible quote: if you give me any curriculum, I would find ways to improve it. Yeah. Like, and I just think that maybe we are privileged in our realm of thinking of like, that's how we walk into any curriculum. So I wonder if maybe we're arriving at some kind of conclusion, which is, and why we are caught in not really knowing where to take this, because there were definitely issues from Lucy. I think one of the big ones we didn't really even get much into is she came under fire for coming from a life of privilege, and that her units of study worked really well for children who came from homes where they were being read to often or could afford to have a reading tutor, but they weren't helping struggling readers that didn't have any support other than what they were being given. Right. And that is devastating and should not be lost. She should hold accountability for that. But also, I mean, in 2018, she did come out with, which I never got to teach with, but she did come out with a set of phonics instruction and a set of decodable books. She released her first dedicated phonics units in 2018, and later decodable books.
Decodable books, yeah.
My big final question is one that I've had, I think, since like the days of 2020 when cancellations were happening all the time. Why can't Lucy be part of the solution?
Exactly.
And why, I feel like the issue that has come out for me and stood out and stayed out, it's definitely phonics and the way that I now think phonics is super sexy. And I definitely thought that it only could be done with like a lecturing teacher with again, like I said, the worksheets, the row of desks. There was this assumption that all children find it boring. It's not true. No. Children love to learn new things. Young children want to learn new things. They want to recite to you. Sometimes rote learning feels really good, and that's okay. So all of that's a big deal. But the bigger deal here for me is, why do we, as a culture in education, and I think we have to specify, like, in public schools more often, why do we keep having to do all or nothing, or the one-stop shop of it all? Right. And why can't there be more collaboration between the progressive side and the traditional side? I really think that the most killer educational experience would come from a school that could figure out how to do both. And, I mean, it's been my passion forever.
I also feel like there's something to be said for transdisciplinary education, where it's like you're not just math, science, social studies, whatever, but it's like all of your subjects are intertwined. You know, you're doing reading and math, you're doing math and reading. Like, there's this whole, because it's a more, we don't live our lives in just doing one thing at a time, right? We're always multitasking. We're always looking at, so like I feel like that's with the IB, that's something that I've always loved, is that, you know, you have your units of inquiry and you're, you know, incorporating all of this, you know, these different subjects within the curricula. And that there's something in here that was talking about that as well. And it's this whole balanced literacy idea where it's like in order for students to really reap benefit of the skills they're learning when they're being taught, you know, or how to read, it's to apply it in different places. And I feel like that's really huge as well. And that's something that I, like, also feel like there needs to be an advocacy for, or there needs to be an implementation of.
Well, also, like, as teachers and as students, well, I can't speak for the students, but as teachers, it feels better to be helping children see themselves as problem solvers, readers, and writers, instead of, like, reciting vowel teams and R-controlled vowels.
But there's a place for it.
But there's a place for it. But for us, it feels better, but, like, we need to get over that.
Place
oh, no.
For it. I do. I just believe that there is.
I just wish that, like, if there was, like, a board of how we're going to fix this thing.
Right.
I would like for her to have a seat at the table.
Same.
Along with, you know, I would love to be able to quote a variety of other people, but, like, I just think there needs to be a table of a differentiated group of experts that make these decisions. And it's an interesting take coming from us, largely being from private schools.
Yes.
Like, that's something that I do think we lacked a little bit in this episode is the empathy for and the understanding of what's going down in public schools, because there's so much more stress. And I really do think that we have a lot of privilege coming from a place of private schools.
Right.
I do think...
And also, like, an experience of being able to not having to adhere to, a specific curricula, or, like, if we have questions, we can ask them and we can change things, because I think that's also something that we actually did. It is something that we did. We had that freedom, and I know not everybody has that. And I know that that's difficult to manage.
I think that should be an upcoming episode, is focusing on teaching reading in the public school arena, and what it's like to have to teach under all of the standards. I also think we need to dig into the current lawsuit that is in play right now, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and Lucy Calkins and a group of parents there.
And it's more of like a consumer-based approach, where it's like, this product didn't work for me. I want my money back, and I want you to be reprimanded and there to be action taken because we were under the assumption, that this was going to work. And it didn't, so...
Oof.
That was a lot.
That was a chunky one.
That was really chunky. In our little wrap-up, or just, like, summation of all of this, I think we covered a lot of ground. And I think we had, like... For me, I think I got to say my little piece. The scapegoating and placing blame. And I love what you said about giving Lucy a place at the table.
Yeah, I just wish our society in general had more space and patience for allowing people that they think caused the problem to be part of the solution. And I think it's just, especially in the realm of education, it's a poor example for our children. And I would like to continue to follow this story in hopes that maybe it's not too late for that.
Yeah.
I really support Lucy, and I think she did an incredible job. And I think for my own homework, I want to learn a little bit more about if she was completely deleting phonics from the chat while she was promoting and selling all of her curricula, or if maybe there was a little,
something in there.
So.
Yeah. I would be interested to see kind of in like what she's doing now and like how they've revamped, because I haven't looked.
Dude, she's still going. She's rebuilding.
Yeah.
Which, like, good for her. I mean, she's taking... So I think...
I agree.
Don't quote me on this, but I believe Fountas and Pinnell are, like... Standing ground, not pedaling backwards at all. Like, they're good. And I actually feel like I can be quoted on saying that Lucy is revamping, if not has revamped.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So, Shanida's phone's blowing up.
Sorry, it's just my mom asking and saying, I hope it's going well. Yes, Mom, it's going great. Yeah.
Okay, well, hopefully you will
see us again.
Sound off in the comments and tune in for another episode of Sound It Out.
Sound It Out.
Oh my God.
Okay, just press here. I know, I'm sweating.
I'm sweating, but I'm